What's up, everybody? Got my Silver Jackify shirt on, which means you know that this is going to be awesome. Uh, please, if you guys like these types of videos, please like, subscribe to my channel. I definitely appreciate that. That encourages me to do more videos. So, 5 topics. Before I get into that, obviously, recently over the last 2 weeks, we lost 3 legendary Hall of Famers, unfortunately. Just wanted to pay my tribute. Tom Seaver. We also lost Lou Brock, and just recently lost Bob Gibson. So it's been a tough couple of weeks if you are a fan of those legendary Hall of Famers. I was still a little too young to really remember these guys, but definitely a blow to baseball not having them around anymore. But anyway, 5 topics. So the first topic I wanted to talk to you guys about, of course, is the MLB playoffs. As a Yankee fan, I am really, really excited. I'm actually very, very optimistic, a lot more optimistic than I was about a week ago. Yankees kind of fell into the playoffs, were not playing well at all, but they did sweep the Indians. I know it's only 2 games, but even that was really encouraging for me as a Yankee fan. I think between them and Tampa Bay, it's like kind of a 50-50 shot. I don't know who's going to win it, but it's going to be really close. I think, the Yankees have a really, really good chance. I mean, they should have Garrett Cole starting for 2 of those games, which is a huge ace in the hole. Stanton and Judge are healthy, although I don't trust Stanton in a big spot. Aaron Judge, I trust, but I don't trust the umpires to be able to do a fair strike zone. I don't know what it is about the Aaron Judge strike zone, but like there'll be a pitch at his shoelaces and they'll call it a strike. Gleyber Torres looked really good. A lot of you guys gave up on Gleyber, but I didn't, and I'm not surprised that he had a really good series against the Indians. And then on top of that, you have Gardner, who had a good series against the Indians, and LeMahieu. I mean, he might be the most undervalued player in all of baseball. The guy is just amazing. He just won his a batting title now in the American League. He is in case you guys didn't know this, he is the only player in the history of baseball to win the batting title in the National League and the American League, and the Yankees have him leading off every single game. So I do think the Yankees have a really good shot at winning against Tampa Bay. I'd say it's about 50-50. But if I were to pick 2 teams, I'd probably go Yankees, Dodgers in the World Series. I'm just feeling it. Yankees, Dodgers. In the National League, how about the Marlins? And you got to give a credit to my boy, Donnie Baseball. Let's see, did I grab all of them? Here we go. There it is. There's the Fleer, the Tiffany, the Donruss, and the Arby's minor league card. But Donnie Baseball basically getting a Marlins team that lost 105 games last year into the playoffs, which is amazing. In second round of the playoffs. Can you imagine if it's Dodgers, Marlins in the NLCS? Talk about David versus Goliath. And then, of course, the one gigantic elephant in the room that nobody wants to even think about is the Astros are still in it. The Astros, I was thinking about, like, could the Astros have gotten luckier in 2020? So, like, basically they cheated their way to a World Series championship and then cheated their way into a World Series the following year. And none of the players got suspended, none of them at all. Then the team, when they do this bogus apology that nobody believed. Then they were going to play baseball, but then of course they suspended the entire season, and then they started playing games, but to an empty park. So that obviously helps the Astros. A 60-game season. Then they finish up a 60-game season, and they finish. They end up getting into the playoffs with a losing record, and now they're in the second round of the playoffs playing the Oakland Athletics, which doesn't make any sense to me. It should have been my biggest issue with the MLB format is that I think it should reseed. I don't think it's fair for the Rays, and I'm looking at this from a Rays perspective. I doubt that they want to play the Yankees. I know that they were really good against the Yankees during the regular season, but my guess is they want nothing to do with the Yankees in the second round, and that they would rather play either the Astros or the Oakland Athletics. But for some reason, the Astros, who had a losing record, get to play the Oakland Athletics. So none of it makes any sense to me. And the elephant in the room, of course, is, can you imagine? It would almost be poetic with this ridiculous 2020 COVID year for the Astros to win a championship in 2020. That would just be poetic. Of course, the awesome thing would be to see the Marlins get really far into the playoffs, and that would like be hopeful. But the way this year has gone, I would not be surprised if the Astros get in. Now, in terms of future years, I had no problem with this format for this year, and I think it's awesome to see guys like Bo Bichette and Luis Robert, some guys that normally wouldn't have been able to make it into the playoffs to shine in the bright lights, especially Fernando Tatis, who's having a really awesome playoff and getting on every single, the front of ESPN and people making a big deal about it. So not surprised by that, by the way. There you go. There's the Fernando Tatis Sapphire. So I like that there's more teams in the playoffs, but I really don't like the fact that it really waters down the season. Now, I have no problem with it. 60-game season, they had to kind of throw something together. But in a future season, if you have 8 teams making the playoffs and you have a team that has a losing record making the playoffs, it kind of waters down a 162-game season to the point where you're like, why even bother trying if you're in like 5th or 4th place, right? Because you might end up like getting a sweet situation anyway, like the Astros did, whereas the Rays have to play the Yankees. So why play really hard? So they got to figure something out. I like the idea of lots of teams in the playoffs, but I also don't like the idea that it really waters down the regular season. So hopefully they figure that out, because I do like the fact that there's a lot of teams in the playoffs. All right, so that was topic number 1. All right, so topic number 2, it took me a while to get to the second point, but there was a lot to cover in that first point. So topic number 2, I just want to talk about New York sports for a second. And by the way, you see that sign behind me, it says, "I want to thank the good Lord for making me a Yankee." And I want to thank the good Lord for making me a Yankee fan. And I can't begin to tell you how lucky I am that I chose the Yankees to be. Like, you guys have to realize I live in North Jersey. There were so many teams I could have picked as my favorite team. I could have picked the New York Knicks. I could have picked the Mets. I mean, when I was in 1986, the Mets won a championship. I have no idea why I decided to be a Yankee fan. I could be a Jets fan. Oh my God. Imagine if I was a Jets fan. I mean, New York doubles down on every single sport, and we suck. We suck so bad. New York is just so bad at everything. Like, we're so bad. Besides the Yankees, it's so pathetic. I mean, the Jets, I think what made me kind of go on this rant was the Jets just lost again to the Broncos, the pathetic Broncos, to go to 0-4. The Giants are 0-3. The Giants would be the worst team in football if it weren't for the Jets, who are even worse than the Giants. So they're going to be both playing for that number 1 pick this year. And the Giants just lost Saquon Barkley for the year. They're a mess. The Giants today are a 14-point underdog against the Rams. It's not like they're playing the Ravens or the Chiefs. But anyway, I just wanted to mention, like, I don't know why New York stinks so badly at like everything besides the Yankees. The Giants for a while, were our other team. But now they're terrible too. So it's just the Yankees. That's all we have in New York. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3, I wanted to talk about in baseball cards. There's this new concept of fractional shares, and I'll put a link below. The Bench Clear channel did an interview. So there was recently a Jordan PSA 10, and the concept is, you don't actually own the card. There's these shares that get distributed. So we'll say the Jordan in a PSA 10 is worth $100,000. And what they do is you could buy a fractional share. So you could buy like $50 worth of that card. And then you own a piece of that, but you don't, I guess the big problem I have with it is you don't get to own the card, which is kind of the whole point. Like, if you are buying fractional shares of baseball cards, you are officially an investor. We talk about, like, I consider myself a collector and an investor. I try to do both. But if you're buying fractional shares of a card, you are 100% an investor. You are no longer a collector. You're just, because you don't get the opportunity to own the card. But that also, that kind of brings up my fourth point, which is a lot of the questions that come to me. Sometimes I'll open it up and I'd be like, what kind of questions do you guys have? The question I get all the time is, what do you guys think of this modern market? And a lot of people are calling it the junk slab era. So in other words, a lot of people think that there's just been this everyone's buying slabbed cards. Like the Juan Soto, I think there's 15,000, the 2018 Topps update Juan Soto, another 15,000 of the PSA 10 Ronald Acuna. And so a lot of people ask me what I think of, modern cards just in general. And I guess the best thing that I can tell you, guys, when it comes to, if you're really interested in buying something that's going to appreciate in value over time, and I've said this many times, and I might sound like a broken record, but the best way to buy cards that will appreciate over time is buying quality over quantity. And the way that I would recommend, and I know a lot of you guys won't follow this, but I'll just say it anyway. The way that I try to budget what I buy is I put about 15 to 20% of my budget into having fun. And that, when I say having fun, that's buying like a 1987 Fleer cello box of baseball. It's the rookie explosion box. It's like buying stuff as just purely as a collector and having a lot of fun. Then what you should do is, whatever your budget, let's say you spend $1,000 a year. What I'm basically saying is, take $200 and have fun with it. Buy dollar cards, buy packs, whatever it is you're into. Then what I'm going to recommend is you take that other $800 and buy a quality card. And the less cards that you buy with that 80%, like, I would rather you buy one card for $800 than, 5 cards at $100 a piece or whatever it is. So it's really about quality, and over time, the most quality cards are the cards that are going to appreciate over time. And I think that's going to hold true with modern cards. I have no problem with buying modern cards as long as you're buying the top echelon type cards, like the cards that are lower end, especially like PSA 10s of like guys that are just, Luis Arias, or, like, not to pick on him, or, Trey Mancini, like guys like that, like, they're not going to be worth anything over time. Like, the guys that you should be spending money on is, your Ronald Acuna, Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, Mike Trout, like your top 5 to 6 guys in the hobby. I have no problem if you're going to spend big money, spend it on the big name guys, Those are the cards that are going to appreciate over time. That's why I really like a card like this, which also you got to keep in mind is supply. So it does scare me when, there's 15,000, and that's what people are getting afraid of, is if I have 15,000, there's not 15,000 of the Sapphire, but 15,000 of the regular Topps and a PSA 10, that does scare me in terms of the ceiling for that particular card. Like, I think if you buy like a guy that's going to be a fantastic player for many years to come, that's going to probably be a Hall of Famer one day. I don't think that they're going to go down to like $5 a card like we saw back in the 80s. But I do think that if you really want to buy a card that's going to appreciate over time, buy a quality card and buy a card that doesn't have a ton of supply. So I wouldn't recommend a card that has 15,000 in the pop reports, because that has like a ceiling. It can only go so high when there's 15,000 of them out there. When there's only 100 of those, like something like this in a PSA 10, that has the opportunity of really going up in value over time. So that's how I feel about the modern market, if you will. It would definitely scare me if you're, when Luka Doncic Prism cards were going for $2,000 a piece in a PSA 10 and there's 20,000 of them, that would scare the heck out of me. I like Luka, and I think, his cards have a lot of potential in terms of value, but you also have to look at the supply of 20,000 of them out there. So just keep all those kind of factors in mind. Try to buy quality stuff if you can. And that's my best advice for modern cards. And that's sort of why the fractional shares thing makes a lot of sense. The thing that scares me is, like, how do you sell it? I have a lot of questions about it. Plus, you don't get to own the card, which is part of the problem. But I do get it, actually. Like, I get, like, if you look over time, like, the top cards, while all those 80s cards are worthless, how about a Michael Jordan? That's done pretty well. How about a Mickey Mantle over that same time period? Done very, very well. So those cards in that upper tier have gone way up. So it makes sense. Like, if you buy fractional shares of a card historically that's done fantastic over the last 30 to 40 years, but the problem is you don't get to own the card. So last thing I wanted to talk about was PSA. So PSA, I don't know if I really have an opinion about it, but I just find it interesting that PSA has literally done everything that they can to lower demand. It's one of the most fascinating things that I've ever had to watch. Like, PSA has basically raised prices, 3 to 4 times this year. They just did away with the ability to submit through Economy. They are doing and they, now if you submit cards, and everybody who pays attention knows this, if you would submit a modern, like an ultra modern card, meaning like a card from like 2017, 2018 to 2020, you would get about a 60 to 70% gem rate. In other words, so if you submit 10 cards, you would get 6 or 7 of them would come back a PSA 10. Now you get guys that have been doing this for a while, submitting 10 cards and getting a 35% gem rate. I was watching one of Mike O's recent videos, and I think it was around 34, and I'm not even counting cards before 2017. I'm talking like ultra modern cards. They were like about a 34 or 35% gem 10 rate. So they're making it more difficult to get a PSA 10. They're taking longer to get the cards back, much longer to get the cards back. And they're raising prices astronomically. So you just wonder, at what point, I mean, they're really doing everything they can to say, don't send us any more cards. But the demand for cards right now has just gone through the roof. I do think that it'll subside as time goes on. As I mentioned before, I think people are not going to come into the hobby and then just leave. I think a lot of people that have come into the hobby due to this whole COVID thing are here to stay. So I think that demand will still stay pretty high, but I just find it fascinating that, and then on top of that, PSA with the lawsuits that are going on. So that's something that you definitely need to keep an eye on. For now, I'm probably going to hold off on submitting any more orders to PSA. It's just becoming more expensive. It's becoming... Oh, another thing that I forgot to even mention, for those of you that do submit to PSA, I submitted an order. I did a video to show everybody what the process was and everything like that. I submitted it, 3 weeks ago, and I know it was delivered because I could see the tracking information, but PSA also takes sometimes a month and a half before they even enter it into their system. So it's kind of scary because you're like, do you guys have it? Do you have my cards? Luckily, there is a spot on their website where you could type in the tracking number and you'll be able to, I can see that they received it, but it does, if you don't know any better, you guys have my cards. And then the weird thing is that their clock, you know, like let's say the service level is, 30 business days, whatever service level you submitted at, their clock doesn't start until they entered into the system. So that those business days doesn't start until a month and a half when they finally enter it in, which is, why should that count towards my business level? So it's amazing. I mean, it's a fascinating thing. Like, I've never seen a company try so hard to reduce demand. It's crazy. But anyway, I thought those were some interesting topics. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I will talk to you later. Peace. Thanks for watching, guys.